long you guys been out here on the streets?
About 6 years.
Yeah.
You guys suffer from any drug addiction or anything?
Yeah.
Just fentanyl.
Fentanyl and meth.
Where you from?
South Phoenix.
You out here homeless on these streets?
Yup.
What's your story out here?
None. Fucking barely got out of prison. Basically, there's no family, no nothing. So this what it is.
What's your name?
Scotty.
How long you been out here on the streets, man?
On and off, almost 3 decades.
30 years, huh?
30 years almost, yeah.
How long you been out here on these streets, man?
Oh, wow. Shit.
What's up, everybody? I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So I woke up one morning, man. I went on YouTube and I always had this thing for like homeless people. Why are people homeless? And I always look at these channels and shit. So I came across this channel and I'm watching YouTube and I'm telling my wife, like, yo, this channel's dope. They were going down into cities, interviewing drug addicts on how they got there and what they're doing about it. And the channel's Broken Dreams on YouTube. You guys check it out. So come to find out, one of my homeboys I interviewed came on the channel and reached out to me. And this guy said he'd be down to do an interview, and it's Broken Dreams. So this is Flacco. You run that channel over there on YouTube. Well, how'd you get into doing that, man?
Okay, what's good with it out there, people? I'm Flacco, man, from also from a channel called The Convicts Perspective, as well as Broken Dreams. Let's go a little bit backstory about the history of both channels, man. I can't talk about Broken Dreams without talking about The Convicts Perspective. So about a year and a half ago, during the COVID epidemic happened, right? And I was very much into recovery at that time. 5 years clean and sober, doing my thing out there, pushing the positive message, being of service, doing H&I. I'm an ex-convict, did a lot of time. I was affiliated with a prison gang organization out there in California. So I was involved in the mix at a very, very high level. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, my life had changed around 2016. And so I started living the life of recovery. You know what I'm saying? Changing the ways in where I go. When COVID happened, I didn't have the outside sources to like go to meetings, you know, do H&I commitments, do schoolwork, do community work, help others. You know what I mean? I live by the altruistic purpose of everything I try to do on a daily basis. And so being that I was an ex-gang member, you know what I mean, on a high level in California, the doors open for me to start doing interviews. I did one on stories written by a current prisoner. I started working with that channel for a long, long time. Then I started my own channel called The Convicts Perspective, which highlights everything that goes on in California with the prison gangs like Nuestra Familia, North Daniels, and all that stuff out there in California. And so, but my passion is to reach out there and help other people. And so I realized, yes, this prison genre stuff that I do, it's positive, and we're trying to enlighten kids and trying to help even old timers that are to change their ways. There has to be a bigger picture to what I'm doing. And so I reached out and met up with some people that had the same compassion that I have about helping others out there in the streets. And so therefore we started the channel Broken Dreams.
Essentially what you do on that channel is you guys pick a city or a town, I'm guessing like a highly populated area that with drug addiction, and you go down and basically walk up to one of them and kind of let them tell you their life stories and their struggles. That's right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to be unique. We're trying to touch areas out there like in Washington. We have some interviews coming up, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, Oakland, Skid Row in LA, Phoenix, Arizona, Tucson, New Mexico, Nevada. And the whole purpose, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring awareness to problems out there in the streets. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to help that mother that's, you know, has a hard time sleeping at night, worried about where her kids out there in the streets, get a better understanding of what really is going out there and how possibly they can help them. We're trying to help that recovering addict that maybe has 18 months, 2 years, that's on the fence of going back and picking up and using, so he can play that tape out and see the realities of where this life is going to bring them. And this fentanyl addiction, man, it is crazy. I mean, I've never seen nothing like it, man. Like, you know, like I said, I'm a recovering addict myself. I mean, my DOC was meth, of course, but to see the fentanyl hold that you have on these young kids, 18 years old, 16 years old, out there on the streets, women, kids, and just the things that they're doing, it's all out there in the open, and it just shocked me. So, you know, I have some people that support the channel that been affected by that drug lifestyle. And so we're trying to reach out with other nonprofit organizations, with other community service research places, to have interactions to where we can also help these people, to where we can give them solutions. So it's kind of hard when you're out there, man. You got to realize, man, honesty is the cornerstone of recovery. And so
That's
a lot of these
hard
people,
one.
they recognize that they have a problem, but they don't want to do nothing about it. So all we could do, we try. Okay, there's a lot of things that go on when we're not recording. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very compassionate about it. I'm trying to reach out to them and give them suggestions, because that's all we can do is give suggestions.
Right.
You know, hey, maybe you may want to try a Salvation Army. You may want to try this recovery place over here called Buena Vista. You may want to try this recovery place called Project 90. So we do our research about the programs that are local in the community and things that they have access to. And what we're learning about a lot of the people that are out there homeless, right? They are very aware of these resources, where to get food, where to get this. It's a lot of them don't have that push or that initiative, and they come up with excuses of why they can't do it. We try to be a prime example of why and how you can do it.
That's what was crazy about one of the episodes I watched on your channel was you were talking to a couple and they had been out there for like 5 years or something. And you brought all that up and you kind of did it in a suggestion way, like, hey, what are the resources like in your community? And they knew them all. But then when it came down to why aren't you doing it, it's like they couldn't come up with an answer. And like, he's looking at her for an answer. She's looking at him. And they kind of just said, nah, we're good. And that right there shows you the power of the drugs that are out there right now, because that's insanity and right in itself, man. Like for you to live that way and not want to change it is just, that's a powerful disease, man. You said 4 years ago that you came to like this point in your life when I guess you got into recovery. What brought you from, prison, gangbanging, doing your thing on the yard to out on the street now wanting to turn around and help the next person that's suffering?
Well, for years, man, I was associated with a big criminal organization out there in California, the NF, you know what I mean? And after I left that lifestyle to the behind, you know what I mean, and dropped out of that group, I started to suffer from drug addiction for years. And so my turning point in my story was around 2016, man. I had a 2-year-old boy and I was in a relationship with another meth addict, and my son was taken by CPS. And that was my breaking point to where it was like, man, everything that I've gone by, I've skated through for all these years, being able to wiggle and do whatever I have to do. And it never affected, I never realized it. Once your addiction starts to affect other people, like it affected my other kids too, because I wasn't present in their life like I should have been. But this was the first time where, the attachment to my child, I realized, man, my actions, he is suffering by my behavior. And so I ended up catching a case. He was in CPS foster care, and I ended up catching a case, and I came in with a bundle. You know what a bundle is when you're coming up with something, right?
Yeah.
And so ironically, I ended up getting bailed out. This is where it's kind of unique about my story. Most of the time, people get clean and sober only when they go to jail. I did my last line the minute I was getting out of jail. And from that point forward, I got sober. I
never heard that.
You know what I mean? So, I was in there getting high and everything and making my money. And I was only in there for 5 days. And I had my last little bit. I'm like, you know what, man, I'm just going to do this. And I'm going to do something. I got honest with myself. I got desperate. I hit that rock bottom, met with loneliness and desperation to where you don't know what to do. You know what I mean? My 2-year-old son, who I had became attached because my other kids weren't really in my life as like they should have been. He's in foster care because of my behaviors, because of my actions. And so I realized the only way for me to get right was to get right with myself. And that's when I finally checked myself into a recovery place. And being an ex-convict, being an ex-prison gang member, I could never go to NA. I could never go to meetings because I prejudged everybody. I used to think, okay, you were never on my level or doing the things I used to do. You know what I'm saying? And so I stopped looking at the differences and started looking at the similarities of everybody's story. And that's when I started taking recovery serious, man. And my son was in foster care for 8 months. And I went through the reunification services, and I actually got my son back before the mom at first. And it's been a blessed story ever since, man. I've been in my son proactive in his life, still clean and sober, still doing my thing. But that was a breaking point there, and it was really hard, man. Anybody that suffers from that disease of addiction, man, we gotta realize, man, it doesn't discriminate where you're from, what side of the railroad tracks you're from, what ethnicity, what sexual gender you prefer, orientation, any of that. It can affect anybody. You know what I'm saying? And I came to terms and I started to associate with people that I would never associate with in my past life. And I quit judging people because I looked at the similarities. They suffer from the same mental obsession, the same physical allergy, and the same spiritual malady that I suffered from. And I found that spiritual solution. And so now, in light of COVID, Broken Dreams gives me a whole nother avenue of me being of service to help others. Because it's hard right now with COVID. Let's keep it real. I'm going to keep it 100. I do not like Zoom meetings. I don't like doing AA meetings on Zoom or NA meetings on Zooms.
I don't like them either. So you're in the same boat. I'd rather do an in-person interview all day long, bro. So with the Broken Dreams, man, and you're out there and you're watching and you're talking to like all the bad shit, you're seeing basically what the whole world doesn't want to know is out there. And that's the addicts on the street and the homeless community. So what do you think, man, is the problem? Like, why do you think these drugs are doing this to people? Because this is on a whole new level.
These fentanyls are coming over from Mexico right now. They're being illegally manufactured. Some of it's coming from different sources. We could talk about all the foreign countries, all the conspiracies, but regardless, they're coming over the border and they're coming over for cheap. So Arizona is one of the prime areas that's being affected. I went out to visit there recently, New Mexico, but now it's starting to spread into other areas like Texas, California, Oregon, Florida. It's this fentanyl addiction. And you know, I think what happened in the beginning was, okay, let's say about 10, 15 years ago, they started coming out with those Oxycontins, right? And people that you never thought before that were getting addicted, like in these nice communities, these suburb communities, started to use it. And you started to see, once they got rid of those, they started coding them. You see people going from the Oxycontins, they were going into the black. Or out there in California, the heroin is black. Or you can call it the brown stuff, whatever you may call it.
The tar.
So the tar. So they started indulging in that. And now they're finding that this fentanyl stuff, which is, they're calling it, they're supposed to be Percocets. They're blues. They're smoking them. They're getting them over there in Arizona for like $3 to $5 a pill.
So yeah, I saw that in one of the videos. The kid said like blue Smurfs. So basically there's a pill that looks just like an oxycodone 30, and it's blue, same size, but it's fentanyl instead, but they're calling it like 30s, like the Percocet.
It's mixed with that fentanyl to get that more, you know what I mean?
And but a normal person asks the drug dealer for oxycodone 30 doesn't know all the time that they're going to be getting this fentanyl, do they?
They all know out there nowadays. They know. Well, it's the same stuff that, what's his name? That rapper, Mac Miller. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
He got those Percocets that had all fentanyl in it. You know what I'm saying? It's the same situation like that, except for they're out there in the streets because they can be manufactured, you know what I mean, on the other side of the border and be sold out here for cheaper.
That's crazy too, because they're dying left and right. You would think like drug dealers wouldn't want to kill off their clientele. You know what I mean? You have the Broken Dreams channel and you do all this stuff with addiction and you're in a bunch of different communities with addiction and the drugs and the epidemic. Do you think there's a stigma like over addiction and addicts, or do you think like that's changing?
You know, it's really hard because I see the comments and you can see some that are so like caring and loving and empathetical, right? Have empathy, towards these addicts. And you have those that are like, man, I'm wasting my taxpayers on these and this, that, get alive, you're going to die. So you get a mixed reading. And I've also had, conversations with other people, you know, over whether addiction's a disease or not. And unless you've been affected by it, you can't understand it. Unless you have a family member that suffers from alcoholism or drug addiction, you're never going to understand it.
You can never explain addiction to somebody that isn't an addict. They'll never get it.
Yes. And so they're always going to be, some people are going to be prejudgmental. But then again, if you have someone that has a kid out there, a brother, a father, they have a little bit more compassion and understand it because they've been affected by it. So people who've never ever suffered any type of direct contact with someone who's an addict are always going to be a little bit more prejudgmental. But I think nowadays in the communities, I think you have a majority of people who've been affected with some form of alcoholism or drug addiction because it's everywhere. You know, and it doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't discriminate what side of the railroad tracks you're from. It's hitting every community and it's hitting them hard.
Yeah, I used to say, man, once the hood has a problem with a drug, you know it's big. Like, and like you said, it started in the suburbs, but eventually, like now it's, I mean, when I go out, like even in Tampa, man, and the addiction, like the homeless community here, man, it's just like it's like night and day, bro. They're not there. It's like you're looking at somebody, but it's just the shell of a person. Like there's no reading in their eyes or anything. It's almost like a zombie.
Yeah, it's a trip. I mean, like we even asked them out there, like in privately, to some people out there, we're like, you know, we've been out to Arizona, which was one area we hit hard with interviews, right? Because they're suffering from the fentanyl addiction out there in Phoenix like no other. And we're asking them, like, Arizona used to be a no tolerant state. What happened? You know, and we're going through a straight 15-mile block radius, and you see the same thing everywhere. Damn. You know, I mean, they're literally at bus stops with foil, hidden the foil. They have their bongs with their meth pipes, hidden it right there in the open.
Damn.
They're falling asleep in front of businesses that are open, you know? And I'm like, I've never seen, I mean, I've been out there, the Tenderloin out there in San Francisco gets pretty bad out there, you know, Skid Row, LA. But this was a little bit different when we visited Phoenix. You know, it just was a whole more wider area that was more spread out. And like we were talking to people that were security out there, and they said, man, wait till midnight happens. It becomes zombie land, you know? And then we asked these people, like, this is what was getting us is we're in this area. We know all these people are homeless, but they don't have no tents. They don't have no sleeping bags. And we start questioning them, like, where are you falling asleep? They'll say the sidewalk.
Wherever.
The bus stop. So it's not like they're trying to even live in a tent, you know what I mean, or down by the river or anything like that. They just don't care. I mean, the drugs have a hold of them that hard. You know what I mean?
When they sleep, they're probably just fucking nodded out. Like they're not even probably in like actual sleep. So they don't even know where they're sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you were out there doing this stuff with the addicts and you're doing your Broken Dreams channel, what was the like craziest thing that you saw when you were out there, like interviewing people and stuff?
I think the craziest thing that we did with the interview was we had an individual, and the videos are actually up. He had a pistol on him the whole time.
When you're sitting there with the camera talking to him?
Well, I mean, off the air a couple of times, he thought people were creeping. He was high on meth really bad, and he was being cool. And he came at us like trying to peep out who we were, like thinking we were cops maybe or something like that. And once he was kept from California, and once he figured out that we knew the lingo and the stilo, which means the style out there, he felt comfortable and we started interacting. Then I get off the car. I'm 6'5", 270. He sees, you know what I mean? And cats, teardrop on my face. So he sees like, okay, I am a California boy. So we start chopping it up. And he goes, yeah, man. He goes, you know, I got my thing. I'm out here. I got to be on my toes and this and that. And so I wasn't sure if he was just trying to play games or whatnot, man. But right when we were doing the interview, right before we started, he's looking and he thinks like these cars are creeping. He goes, man, they think they're slick. And he pulls up his waistband. And I see the thing right there. I
don't mean to laugh.
Yeah. And I'm like, and then my other partner was like, man, you good, bro? You good? And like, he's more in the line of fire. I step this way. And you know what I mean? There's nothing worse than a meth addict with a gun at the same time.
I was just going to say that, bro. There is,
you know what I'm saying?
That's a horror story.
And he even said we have the video, we dropped it. He even said in the video, he goes, you know, all I got out here is my pistol. You know what I mean? And so that was one scenario that we've seen. Other scenarios we've seen, of course, we see the normal, the streetwalkers. We already know what time it is with that.
Yeah.
You know, just the age bracket, just the things that we've seen people out there just nodding out, walking down the street almost butt naked, you know, no one caring, people just talking to themselves, just the average things that you see. You know, but the stories that we heard from people about people getting stabbed out there, their guts hanging out, or, you know, I mean, you go to all the bathrooms out there. I mean, you know, you go to a stall, you're going to find some foil burnt up with the fentanyl on it. It's like, man, like a lot of people had no care about what they were doing out there. And it seems like
giving up at life, bro.
Yeah. And the thing was, the age was a big thing to me, man. It wasn't like the traditional older cats, you know what I mean? Like older people that just hit that breaking point of their addiction to where they get to in their 30s. They can no longer maintain it. Because you know how it was during our time. I don't know about you, but I'm 43. During my time era, the most of the time, the people that became bad addicts, there was an age bracket when they got about 35 is where they either got their life together or they became a full-blown addict.
They have that saying, man, you either arrest it and get clean or do what you got to do, or you go on to the bitter end. And that 35 is usually that like teeter point on, are we going to make it or are we going to go on to the end? And like you said,
now it knows no age barrier now with this new fentanyl stuff. I mean, 18 years old. I mean, the meths hit the community bad, but like, you know, I'm originally from California, and I'll say about 15 years ago, we didn't have none of this tent city stuff, man. And when I go back out there to visit California, there's not one city or one town that I have not been to that isn't populated with a homeless population. Tents everywhere, all on the freeways.
What are they doing though? Like, what's LA doing? Like California, like what are they telling the community? Like they just let that shit go on. Like it's not a big deal.
In some areas they start to clean up. It depends the pressure, but you can only keep them out for so long, and you can only arrest people so many times.
Yeah.
You know, true. So, I mean, there's no solution to these problems, man. And a lot of it, man, is, you know, my personal opinion, right? Because I went through recovery and I've seen it. There's a lot of programs out there, man, that are given the limited funds because all these programs, they bid for funding, right?
It's all about money.
But to be beneficial, the government only allocates a certain amount to each group. So instead of them having programs that have stages and steps that work, you don't really see that too much often. You know what I mean? Like, that's why the Salvation Army is a pretty good program. I know some people that went through that because they could be there for 6 months, get work therapy, and then they could stay there afterwards and pay rent. You got some programs where, you know, it's covering 30 days or 90 days. And then so they get there, they feel good about themselves and they're going the right direction. But now they have to fend for themselves.
Kick them out. Yeah, they kick them out.
And then they have these SLEs to where, like, they're charging them more than they would pay for an apartment just to have a room. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, they have to have some type of programs that work for these people that give them incentives.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
California has $1 billion a year rehab, like the industry going on out there right now, where they're just, like you said, bringing people in 30 days, fucking $30,000, boom, insurance charge, get good, kick them out. And then they relapse. And then they get caught in the cycle. Like we got caught in the cycle of getting out of jail, going back, getting out, going back. They get caught in that same cycle, except they don't go to jail. They just go in and out of rehabs. And then usually they get to like 10 and then they give up.
Yeah. So I think you got to have some type of stepping stone programs out there that work, 90 days residential treatment to where let's get down and dirty. Let's not worry about the outside world. Let's get to the core of your problems.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Because you're not living recovery while you're in treatment. You know what I'm saying?
Don't get it twisted because people get that twisted.
Yes, they think, they get 60, 90 days, I'm in recovery. No, you're in treatment right now.
Yeah.
Then it's when you get to the outside world, when you apply those tools that you learn, that's recovery. So I think they have to have more incentive programs, more, they got to give people opportunities too. You know what I'm saying? Like getting people off the street, you get them treated, you give them some work skills. And then you have companies that work with them that will hire them at a livable wage. That's the problem in some of these communities is once you get on your feet, you're not being paid a livable wage. So it's so much easier for a lot of these people to give up. There's some people that we talk to out there, man, they don't care. They're like, okay, living on the streets.
Yeah, man. It's almost like, dude, like they set it up where you got to jump through so many hoops that you're so far down that you just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like you said, I think that really like discourages people from changing their life and they get caught in that pattern, man. But I know, you said you struggled with addiction. You've been to prison. You were in a gang out in California. I'd like to get more into your story and kind of where you came from and what brought you to where you are now doing this stuff with your YouTube channels. Okay, well, hey, we're going to run part 2 on this interview and we're going to bring it to you about a little bit about Flacco's life and how he grew up. Man, I know you got a couple YouTube channels and some social media so that people know how to find you, man. Why don't you go ahead and just let them know how to do that? Man,
a Convicts Perspective, man. That's my one of my primary channels I've been having for over a year. Has about 17,000 subscribers. It talks about California prison gangs and California gang lifestyles, as well as we branch out into other topics as well as the Broken Dreams channel. But I wanted to give a shout out to Gunners Collective, Paradigm Media News, stories written by a current prisoner, and the Homie Hangout, as always, man.
And a lot of those channels you named are all good channels, man. So
you know, me and Josh were Sellies 24 years ago, right?
Nah, bro, that's crazy. We're talking about the Homie Hangout. So for the people watching, they know who he is. He
started YouTube. I'm the one that gave him a push to start his YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think he did tell me that before an interview one day, but yeah, your channels are good, bro. So if you guys are watching, man, go check out this dude's channel. I'm going to put him in the description. I'll link him up so that way you guys can find him real easy. But hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the channel and I'm looking forward to linking up with you to do part 2.
Most definitely. I appreciate you.
All right, man. If you're new and you're tuning in for the first time, that's the kind of stuff we talk about on this channel. Jail, addiction, crime, all the injustice that goes on in the criminal justice system. So if you like that type of content, hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on. And with that, it's DOC TV and we're out.